Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Berlin. My name is Hildegard Büning. I'm from Hannover Medical School. And on behalf of the European Society for Cell and Gene Therapy, as well as for the German Society for Gene Therapy, I all welcome you to Berlin and to our joint conference. And with my few slides in the beginning, I just would like to give a short intro into our educational session, which will last the whole day and will be somehow a preparation for our main congress. I would love, or I invite you, to use the educational session for lively discussion, and as you will see or may have seen in the last part of our session, we have a new format where you see the views of different parties all contributing to the development of a gene therapy product. So let me just start. It's always challenging to have the first talk, you know. And I would like to start really to bring over a little bit the spirit of the time when gene therapy starts, but also the spirit in which we are. And it's really, the concept is really nicely summarized in this review. Let's see. I don't see any laser pointer. Okay. Mouse is working. Okay, perfect. As I said, starting is always a little bit challenging. So I would like to quote from this review of Luigi Naldini, somehow saying what really the concept of gene therapy is and why it fascinates so many, the lay people as well as us scientists and the clinician, because this is the only option you do have really to treat a genetic disease by its roots, namely by putting in what is defect. And gene therapy and all the concepts developed in gene therapy, as you all know, also changed the way cell therapy is done, because now we can make the cells even more smarter vesicles than they have been before. And to really put it very simple, and please don't laugh, what the concept behind is you have a delivery tool, you have the right choice of your transgene to be delivered, you have the right choice of your target cell, and then it equals to your therapeutic effect. You all know, and therefore we are here at the Congress, that's not that simple. You all know that we started not with a racing car, but more, we are in Berlin, with a Trabi. You all know that it was not that easy to have the right transgene, and although gene therapy is, the concept is to replace what is defect, we are not yet there. As of yet, it was gene addition strategies that are followed. However, you all know with the gene editing tools in front of us, this may really now be an option that we can really go to a gene repair. And also with the target cells, right at the beginning, and I show you an example, we were limited to what was technically possible. So let us drive and go back a little bit into history. And the first gene therapy, which is always quoted in the books, started in 1990. There, the gene-modified T cells were the vehicles which were brought back into the patients to treat a primary immunodeficiency, ADA-SCIDs. And you have to imagine this was the first time that people really used and tried a gene therapy, and this then inspired a lot of different actions in the world. But first of all, they at that time had to use gene-modified T cells because that was the cell type that was available. This, because they are far down here in the differentiation process, it's not the best cell if you really would like to treat a lot of diseases. And therefore, a lot of efforts after this first gene therapy showing that gene therapy seems to be safe was then in the direction of getting these hematopoietic stem cells into culture and modified, because these cells can differentiate then into the body in a number of different cells, and thereby when you modify and bring in the correct gene of a defective in a defective hematopoietic cell, you can really treat a lot of different diseases. So really the next big step after showing that a gene transfer into a human being is possible was then really to focus on these hematopoietic stem cells. And really this is the area where also scientists and clinicians started working heavily together because of being so fascinated from the concept. And honestly, therefore, this is also, this meeting here is also something special for us, for the European Society for Gene and Cell Therapy, because inspired by that, a gene therapy is in principle possible. European clinicians and scientists have met just 1 year after the first therapy and then decided to launch European Working Group in 1992. And the first Congress of the ESGCT previous working group was indeed at the 17th October of 1992, so the same day as we do now have our 25th anniversary celebration Congress. And also somehow around the world, society started. So for example, the German society, which is co-hosting this Congress, was launched in 1994. But with all this hype, you all know that we had also drawbacks and sad cases. And the first, which was on the bumpy route to a gene therapy product, was that due to an adverse event caused by the recognition of the immune system of the viral vector, we had to report on a death of Jesse Gelsinger back in 1999. And that was really shaking in gene therapy. It was very important then that this report came up in 2000, spearheaded by Alan Fisher and colleagues, showing that and bringing the first real proof that by gene therapy you can cure an underlying disease by modifying hematopoietic stem cells with a vector, bringing in the correct version of the diseased or affected gene, in this case, the gamma chain of interleukin receptors. Then a lot of efforts were ongoing, and my next stop is 2010, where already gene therapies were in place for ADA-SCID, for SCID-X1, chronic granulomatosis disease, and with Scott-Aldrich disease. And what you see there is these are ex vivo gene therapies where you have the hematopoietic stem cells modified by a specific tool. You will hear a lot on the Congress as well on this, a gamma retroviral vector which inserts the correct gene into the host cell chromosome for allowing that the hematopoietic stem cell really can then give birth to cells which can differentiate in all the lineages you need to really reconstitute the immune system. And when we look back and also look until now, then we see that we have reports on clinical benefit for patients treated with these diseases. However, that with the sole exception of ADA-SCID, we saw that when these vectors, the gamma retroviral vectors, were used for gene therapy, that we also saw in some of the patients side effects which were due to the integration pattern of the vectors as well as to the very strong promoters, viral LTRs, which were used to drive the transgene. This all was setbacks for gene therapy in the field, and it was at that time also strange to say that you work in gene therapy. However, it also resulted in the rise of totally new vector systems, as for example the lentiviral vectors. And in addition, people worked together, started to understand that it would be maybe better to use cell-own promoters, not the strong vector promoters, just to be on the safe side. And people started to also develop tools for analyze genotoxicity. So the first gene therapy using this new kind of vectors was back in 2009, where thin lentiviral vectors were used to treat adrenoleukodystrophy, a neurodegenerative disease, and in this case also gene-modified hematopoietic stem cells were used. 2008 is my next stop, introducing another vector which you will hear about a lot today and during the Congress, which is adeno-associated viral vectors, which were used by subretinal injection to cure or at least to help patients with congenital blindness. And then, yes, of course, 2011, there was the first report that engineered T cells, so that you use the own immune cells of the body, modifying them in a way that they are now able to recognize cancer cells, works. And of course, 2011 was also reports showing that you can use a systemically applied adeno-associated viral vectors for treating hemophilia. Then for Europe in particular, but also for the Western world, a milestone happened in the way that with 2012, the first gene therapy product was licensed in Europe, and this was for a disease called lipoprotein lipase deficiency. Again, AAV vectors were used in this regard. And since then, a lot of things happened, and I marked these in green. And so you see that we are really on our way, having one product after the other. So 2015, we had the first oncolytic virus, which got approval for the treatment of melanoma. Last year at the ESGCT Congress, we were reporting on the first ex vivo human hematopoietic stem cell therapy using a gamma retroviral vector. And you see here, it's ESGCT, the one disease where gene therapy started already in 1990. And yes, you may have also heard that now also in the US, we have the first gene therapy product license, which is the CAR T cell approach. So we are here, and there's a lot of things to do, but let us stop a moment and ask some key people in the world of gene therapy and cell therapy what they think were the key events developed in the last 5 years. And you will see Robin a lot around. He is our current president of the ESGCT, and he thinks, and I think many of you will agree, what is important and really inspired the whole field is that we now indeed can show that gene therapy works and that we can report on real clinical benefit for the patients. And the president of the German Society, Christoph von Kalle, I can quote saying that he really now sees with the gene editing tools as a horizon that it is really on the edge, that we have now the option to really come to a proof of the concept that we can do a real gene replacement, because as I said, so far we had to use or stick to the concept that we add a new gene to cure the underlying disease. What is very important, because these are also very, very severe diseases like the primary immunodeficiencies, are the neurodegenerative diseases. And Nathalie Cartier, the former president of the ESGCT, as well as Alberto Oricchio, one of our board members, point to the success in these areas, where also in this case ex vivo modified hematopoietic stem cells show benefit. And again, Alexander Ariuti, who is also a board member of the ESGCT, pointed towards the first approval at that year for Stimvalis, ex vivo gene therapy for ESGCT. Juan Björn, also a member of the board, points to a very important other topic, and this is that we had to report on severe side effects when using the first generation vectors. However, with improved vector technologies, it seems to be that we at the safer side. Because for him, the most important thing was that in the last 5 years, we did not have to report on severe side effects. However, we are still not really there. There's a lot of things to do, and therefore we are also here to hear the news and to get inspired what we can do in gene and cell therapy to make it even better. And how we have to focus on is that the tools we are as of yet using, in particular if we have the viral vectors, these are not designed by nature to be used for the cells we would like to treat them. So we have off-target effects so that vectors are transducing cells which are not defined by us as a target cell. We may have low transduction efficacy where we do have high numbers of vectors which we have to use, ending up in production cost as well as in the risk, which is also here with the off-target transduction, that we mount immune responses. We need now really to go into the direction of gene replacement instead of gene addition, in particular if we would like to treat dominant diseases. We face the problem that for most of our diseases we do not have an appropriate animal model around, so that we not really can foresee what happens. And also an effect which now comes into game where we really could show that gene therapy in principle works is that we may face a problem that we have a loss of therapeutic effect. And you have heard about these reports because, as I told you, we had in 2008 the reports on treatment of blindness diseases. These were 3 clinical studies coming out back to back. And for 2 of these, there is now reports out showing that the effect fades. When we have to reapply, and also sometimes if we have a patient in front of us who has already had contact with the vectors we would like to use in its native form, we face a problem that we have neutralizing antibodies which get down the efficacy, and also we see immunogenicity against the transgene or against the vectors. And last but not least, vector production is still an issue. So, with this meeting and also with this educational day, we would like to introduce you in the current state. And therefore the order of our educational day today is that we first will look at the different delivery tools. We have experts from this field. Christian Buchholz from the Paul-Ehrlich Institute will focus on the enveloped vectors. Anja Erhardt will introduce us into the DNA vectors, on Manfred Ogris into the non-viral world. Then we zoom into what we would like to deliver, and into the vectors, genomes, and how we can make it better, and we'll then discuss potential limitations and strategies to overcome. Before then, and that is what I wanted to tell you in the beginning, we have this experiment where we would like to have the view from different perspectives and then have a common discussion on the topics.